Hello, you're welcome to study session 11, which will discuss the chemistry of lipids. Please sit back to enjoy this lecture. Moving to the introduction, lipids are a group of naturally occurring molecules that include fats, waxes, sterols, fat-soluble vitamins like the vitamins A, D, E, and K, monoglycerides, diglycerides, triglycerides, phospholipids, and others. At the end of this study session, you should be able to explain lipid. You should be able to discuss the categories of lipids. You should be able to explain the biological functions of lipid. You should be able to explain lipid metabolism and discuss the clinical significance of lipids. Lipids. The main biological function of lipids include storing energy, signaling, and acting as structural components of cell membranes. Lipids may be broadly defined as hydrophobic or amphiphilic small molecules. The amphiphilic nature of some lipids allow them to form structures such as vesicles, multilamellar, unilamellar liposomes, or membranes in an aqueous environment. Lipids have application in the cosmetic and food industries, as well as in nanotechnology, although humans and other mammals use various biosynthetic pathways to both break down and synthesize lipids. Some essential lipids cannot be made this way and must be obtained from the diet. Categories of lipids. We can have 8 categories of lipid as you can see on your screen. The first one is fatty acid or fatty acid residues. When they form part of a lipid are a diverse group of molecules synthesized by chain elongation of acetyl-CoA primer with Malonyl-CoA or methylmalonyl-CoA groups in a process called fatty acid synthesis. They are made up of hydrocarbon chain that terminate with a carboxylic acid group. This arrangement confers the molecule with a polar hydrophilic end and a non-polar hydrophobic end that is insoluble in water. The fatty acid structure is one of the most fundamental categories of biological lipids and is commonly used as a building block of more structurally complex lipids. The carbon chain typically between 4 and 24 carbons long, may be saturated or unsaturated, and may be attached to functional groups containing oxygen, halogens, nitrogen, and sulfur. Moving to the glycerol lipids and glycerophospholipids. Glycerol lipids are composed of mono, di, and tri-substituted glycerols, the most well-known being the fatty acid triesters of glycerol, called triglycerides. In these compounds, the 3 hydroxyl groups of glycerol are each esterified, typically by different fatty acids. Because they function as an energy store, these lipids comprise the bulk of storage fat in animal tissues. The hydrolysis of the ester bonds of triglycerides and the release of glycerol and fatty acids from adipose tissue are of the initial steps in metabolizing fat. Glycerophospholipids, usually referred to as phospholipids, are ubiquitous in nature and are key components of the lipid bilayer of cells, as well as being involved in metabolism and cell signaling. The sphingolipids are a complicated family of compounds that share a common structural feature, a sphingosine-based backbone that is synthesized de novo from the amino acid serine and a long-chain fatty acid CoA, then converted into ceramides, phosphofingolipids, glycosphingolipids, and other compounds. Sterolipids, such as cholesterol and its derivatives, are an important component of membrane lipids, along with glycerophospholipids and sphingomyelins. The steroids, all derived from the same fused 4-ring core structure, have different biological roles as hormones and signaling molecules. The 18 carbon steroids include the estrogen family, whereas the 19 carbon steroids comprise the androgens such as testosterone and aldosterone. What are the biological functions of lipids? Energy storage. Triglycerides stored in adipose tissue are a major form of energy storage in both animals and plants. The adipocyte or fat cell is designed for continuous synthesis and breakdown of triglycerides in animals, with breakdown controlled mainly by the activation of hormone-sensitive enzyme lipase. In recent years, evidence has emerged showing that Lipid signaling is a vital part of the cell signaling. Lipid signaling may occur via activation of G protein-coupled or nuclear receptors, and members of several different lipid categories have been identified as signaling molecules and cellular messengers. Also as transport, polyphenols and their phosphorylated derivatives also play important roles. In this case, the transport of oligosaccharides across the membranes. Lipids also form the basis for steroid hormones. Let's go into lipid metabolism. The major dietary lipids for humans and animals are animal and plant triglycerides, steroids, and membrane phospholipids. The process of lipids metabolism synthesizes and degrades the lipid stores and produces the structural and functional lipids. In animals, when there is an oversupply of dietary carbohydrates, the excess carbohydrate is converted to triglycerides. This involves the synthesis of fatty acids from acetyl-CoA and the esterification of fatty acids in the production of triglycerides, a process called lipogenesis. The fatty acids may be subsequently converted to triglycerides that are packaged in lipoproteins and secreted from the liver. The synthesis of unsaturated fatty acids involves a desaturation reaction whereby a double bond is introduced into the fatty acid chain. Triglyceride synthesis takes place in the endoplasmic reticulum by metabolic pathways in which acyl groups in fatty acid CoAs are transferred to the hydroxyl groups of glycerol 3-phosphate and diacylglycerol. The acetyl-CoA is then ultimately converted into ATP, CO2, and water using the citric acid cycle and the electron transport chain. Hence, the Krebs cycle can start at acetyl-CoA when fat is being broken down for energy if there is little or no glucose available. The energy yield of the complete oxidation of fatty acid palmitate is 106 ATP, while unsaturated and odd chain fatty acids require additional enzymatic steps for degradation. What are the nutrition and health values of lipids? A large number of studies have shown positive health benefits associated with consumption of omega-3 fatty acids on infant development, cancer, cardiovascular diseases, and various mental illnesses such as depression, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and dementia. In contrast, it is now well established that consumption of trans fats such as those present in partially hydrogenated vegetable oils are a risk factor for cardiovascular diseases. Thanks for listening. Bye.